This is a demonstration of Axway's mobile backend as a service, geofence, and location-based push services. The idea is I want to send a push notification to all the users that are near a specific location or a set of locations. And when they launch the application in response to the push notification, then the application will fetch promotions, again, based on their location. So what you're looking at on the screen is my iPhone that's reflected on my screen. And I have a simple titanium application. There's not really much of a UI here, but it's mainly just to make the API calls to the MBaaS. And I can see my GPS coordinate, and I can see that I'm logged into the MBaaS, and of course I can go fetch the promotions, but this is the application that will receive the push notification. So let me exit the application, and let me move this over to the side, and I will make a location-based push. So I'll use Postman for that. And you can see the push, you can see the API here. There's the base URL, it's push notification, it's the notify, and I have my, my MBaaS app key. And here's the payload that will be in the push notification, special Toyota offers for you. And you can see it's a location-based push, so I have a where clause using a near sphere search based on GPS coordinates and a radius. So I will send that, and there is the push notification on my iPhone. I'm going to click on it, and it launches the application, and then it pulls down a promotion and displays it in an alert. Now obviously you'd have a much nicer UI, and the user can look at the promotion, maybe get some more details. So how were we able to send a push notification to users in a specific GPS area? And then how were they able to retrieve geofence information or promotions that are location-based? So I went to the Appcelerator online documentation at docs.appcelerator.com. I switched to the ArrowDB section, came over to the push notifications section of the APIs, and then you can read about push notifications for Android versus iOS, pushing by tokens or user sessions, schedule push notifications, but this is the area that I cared about, location-based push notifications. So again, the idea is if the client application, whether it's a Titanium app or an iPhone or an Android app written in Objective-C or Android Java, if they would use the subscription update API, which is down here, then that will update the user's GPS coordinate in the Axway MBaaS. Then I could use the notify API, and I could use the where clause and do a location-based search for devices. So you could see it's a location, near sphere, geometry type point, and the coordinates, which would be the longitude and latitude, and then a radius. So I made that API call earlier, and it sent a push notification to my device. Then, of course, and then again, you could read more about the API calls here. So there's some documentation here for making that call from a Titanium app, from a REST API, from an iPhone app, an Android app, or a Node app. So once the application launched in response to the push notification, the user swiping the notification, then the application went and fetched the geofence information based on its GPS coordinate. So if I go over to the geofence documentation, you could read about it, and I come down here, and again, I could have a where clause and really just fetch geofence locations that are near my GPS coordinate. And again, the documentation down here talks about how to make those API calls. Let's now switch over to the dashboard, which gives me visibility into my MBaaS application. And if I come under Manage Data, I can see the geofence objects, and I've got 3 of them. And here are the 3 geofence locations that I've created. And you can see one of them is near where I am with a radius of 10 miles. And this is the payload that was displayed in the alert. Brookline Toyota, and the promotion was $2,000 off a 2017 Prius. And if I try to create a new geofence location, you could see a little bit more about what a geofence looks like. I can enter the Latin long, a radius, and then of course the JSON payload. And I can also optionally specify a start and end date. So if the promotion only lasts for a couple hours or a couple days, that can be specified here. So when I query it, if I'm outside of that date range, I will not get the promotion. So in the example I showed you, I actually made a MBaaS API call. It was a location-based push to one GPS coordinate with a certain radius from Postman. But obviously you're not going to manually be making push notifications. You're going to need some back-end application which will make API calls against the MBaaS. So I intend to demonstrate that now. So I've got an API builder project that's running here locally. So I did an appc run, and it's called LBGFS arrow. But this is an API builder application that's running. And what this application does is it will go to the MBaaS, it will read the geofence information out of the MBaaS, and with each geofence location, there's a Latin long. I will grab the Latin long and then make a push notification based on that Latin long. So my application is running here locally. Let me go to the API Builder console. So I'll bring up Chrome, and I'm at the console, and I'll go to the API that I've exposed to kick off this job or this application. And it's one API called region push. And I'll call it here from inside the admin console. I should see a push notification on my iPhone that's reflected here on the screen. And there it is. You saw this before. I'll click on it, and then it went and fetched the promotion. If I look here in terminal, I can actually see the console log of what happened. So the region push API was called. It looks like I'm fetching an array of geofences, and then I'm actually grabbing the data out of each geofence, and it looks like I made three push notifications because there were three geofences, but there is no one at the first location, and there are people or devices at the other two locations. So let's take a look at the code. It's pretty simple and straightforward, and again, this is built in API Builder. So this is a custom API that I created in API Builder, and it's called region push. And basically it has login credentials for the MBaaS. And the first thing it does is does a user login using the login credentials. And then if there's no error, then what it does is it calls the geofence query API. And I just want to grab all of the geofences without any search criteria or query criteria. And if I get more than one geofence, then I'll kind of loop through the geofences. And for each one, I will extract the Latin long, so I have the coordinates here. And I'm going to be calling the push notifications notify. So that's the API call for sending a push notification. And you can see the where clause here. You've seen it before. Basically, it's a near sphere search type point, and the coordinates are from the geofence object, and it's the coordinate. It's an array. The coordinates are an array of Latin long. So there's longitude and there's latitude and a radius of 5,000 meters.